I'm oppressed. I didn't say I'm
Yeah.
oppressed. I said I'm oppressed.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Trampled Underfoot podcast show, folks. I'm oppressed.
So who's oppressing you?
I'm oppressed. The button.
Okay. I was just looking at my camera going, damn, you need a haircut, boy.
I'm oppressed. The button. I'm oppressed. It just that's the first thing that came out because of all the stuff that's online that
Yeah.
pops up in the feeds of this and that narratives
Hmm.
that pop up. So I'm oppressed. Does
Hmm.
you could if without the context, I'm oppressed
Hmm.
without the ed, but you can fill in the ed, and then all of a sudden you're
Hmm.
oppressed.
Yeah, exactly. But that's how that stuff goes. Someone take a little bit of something and you just run with it. You
It's
know?
the man.
Yeah. Why is it always the man?
Why can't it be the woman?
I mean, I guess it's possible, but
Humankind. I don't know. People kind. I think it was Trudeau, the president of Canada, that I saw a clip. I didn't pay attention, but I did. It did register because it's such a
mhm.
silly thing to do. But again, maybe not for others. But he was in some sort of thing, and a lady, a Canadian citizen, stood up to mention some question or ask some questions of their
Mhm.
prime minister, and she said da 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 da, and then she inserted the word mankind or something to that effect. And he said, "Well, look, I want to correct you. It's people kind." Or something to that effect, or either that, or
Humankind.
because she said mankind,
Mhm.
and he said no, because it's more of an inclusive thing, people kind. And
Mhm.
it's like Latinx.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you know this, but there's a thing called Latinx.
Doesn't ring any bells. No.
Well, instead of being Latin
Mhm.
for Spanish people,
Mhm.
um, back a few years ago, they decided to. You never heard of Latinx?
Uh-uh.
Oh, dude, that's one of the most wonderful. It's such a. At least I enjoy it because I see read the comments and people are arguing and stuff. So, in order to be more inclusive,
Mhm.
here in the United States, somewhere whereabouts I don't know, but years ago they decided for changing the name
Mhm.
or having that option because Latin is not inclusive enough. So the people that came up with, and I'm sure you can follow the trail to find how that all got started. But by the time I get whiff of it,
Mhm.
um, there's people really gun hoing for Latin X, which is more inclusive. Oh, I think I know what it was because of the issue. This is partly it because you say, oh, because
Mhm.
Latinos, and
Mhm.
that's kind of a slight or ignoring Latinas when
Oh,
you
so it's
reference
it's masculine versus yeah. Okay.
something like that. Don't like
Mhm.
quote me on it, but it's in that realm. And so then people started getting that sort of thing rolling, and
Mhm.
like people of Spanish ancestry,
Mhm.
be it Mexican, this and that, it's just all across the board,
Mhm.
outright rejecting it because number one, it's like Latin X. It sounds like a product.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't sound like
A
you're.
service or a website.
Yeah, it sounds.
Latinx.com.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with it because it's like people like, well, wait a second, are you what the hell? And but what happened was that people weren't buying it and rejecting it outright,
Mhm.
and some people were even going as far as traveling to South America and interviewing people over there. And when you ask them, they're like they don't even know how to
Yeah.
gra- grapple with it because it's the furthest. It's an American invention.
Mhm.
It could be from woke Hispanic people. I'm not sure how that works, but
Mhm.
it's an American invention, U.S. that's trying to be all inclusive. But when you take it to the root of the people,
Mhm.
they're like, dude, we've been like who we are. and now what is this? Like they don't understand. They just don't understand.
Yeah, you see that a lot all over the world. It's a lot of things happening here in the US that the other cultures just plain and simply don't understand. They're just like, why are you worried about this? There's so many other things to concern yourself with,
Yeah,
you know?
the in Spanish, and by the way, I'm not like
Mhm.
proficient in terms of like the um how it all should grammatically
Mhm. Well,
I,
you beat the Skippy out of me, so I'll take your
I've
word
been
for it.
practicing, but it's not like I have the full context, but I have more
Mhm.
context now that I've been it's not so um self-evident that it's necessarily a problem. W- the male female dichotomy
Mhm.
and o and ah,
Mhm.
male female and all that kind of jazz is not necessarily something that in Spanish it necessarily, but it can, and the US is infectious in terms of its cultural output.
Yeah.
So the rest of the world, and so does down south, they do get signals of what's hot and trending, and
Mhm.
so it US stuff does bleed
Mhm.
into.
Yeah, it does. But I do know that in a lot of European cultures, they look at a lot of that stuff and they just laugh at it. It's like, see, look what these guys are doing again, you know,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah.
So I don't know. I really, I don't get it. I don't. I'll be honest with you, Eloy. I've never understood labels anyway. If you want to call yourself something, that's fine. But I deal with people one on one. I don't worry about group names or group think or anything like that. Maybe
I
I'm just naive. Maybe I just don't get it, but maybe I just don't want it because I think, we deal with people one on one and that's it. And if you're a
I
good person, you're a good person. If you're not a good person, everybody knows it.
Yeah, no, that I agree with that completely. But I have been looking into it because of the things that I've been involved in, as far as studying
Sure.
a little bit of the history here and there in the
Hmm.
context of all this to do with ancestry and this and that, and it's parallel to a lot of other things that come to mind or that you run across, and you say, well, why is this the way this is, and that and so by hook or crook,
Yeah.
these sort of questions have entered
Hmm.
my window of view, and so I end up watching stuff like that and this and that. But the Latin X, um, I think was I'd have to go further. I mean, I've seen it a few times, but I don't know what the root origin. But I do know it's part of being all inclusive and this and that.
Okay.
Um, I think that's what that is. But
Hmm.
people aren't necessarily buying. Like nobody, like nobody
Hmm.
thinks in terms of. Some people do,
Yeah, I'm
obviously,
sure they do. But
but I don't think that most people. Oh, now we're Latinx. What the hell is that? It just doesn't make. But it's one of those funny cultural people trying to mold culture to fit other
well,
necessities.
you're also trying to mold an entire language because if you're going to do that, you can't stop at one word. You have to you have to completely degenderize the language if that's the case.
Yeah, and
You
these
can no
things
longer
happen.
have El Nino and La Nina.
Right.
You have to change that,
Yeah.
you know. Now,
But these
see,
things.
I don't know what it is in Spanish. I know what it is in German. If it's masculine in German, it's der, der. If it's feminine in German, it's die, die. If it's neuter, it's das. I don't know what it is in Spanish. I know el and la, but I don't know if there's anything in between.
um I don't know the grammatical.
Mhm.
I don't know it like the back of my hand. You know that I started actually reading, other than menus and stuff, maybe about 4 years ago. All
Oh,
my
okay.
life, well, I told you that back in the day that, I started like before, for me, Spanish was a tool. Obviously, you communicate with your family, but it was. I didn't get my entertainment. It's not like I busted open novels and you know what I'm saying. So I
Yeah,
didn't
you
have.
didn't study it. Yeah, I get. Yeah.
And in fact, to be honest with you, when I spoke, a lot of people, and this is not just me, it's many people that are a generation out or more
Hmm.
from the source that mix a lot of English stuff into like Spanglish
Hmm.
to try to correct for what the words that should be put in the sentence. And so people. So to be honest with you, I've tried to practice, but I don't know um, the grammar like I would with English. And it's not like I've read all the books I've ever read have been English and this and that and whatever. So as far as that, I wouldn't be the one. I can see when something is stupid, when something doesn't match
Yeah,
like
I'm with
that.
you. I'm with you. I think, yeah. Well, I agree with you there. I mean, because you can't cherry pick. You can't pick and choose. You know, if this is a movement within the linguistic community to make some changes, then fine, go for it. But if it's kind of like Esperanto back in the day, where they tried to invent this language that everybody could use, and nobody liked it, and it just died before it ever really you know took on a life of its own. It just died out.
Yeah, language can adapt,
Hmm.
but
Well, it has to.
it has to be organic.
Hmm.
Or not that it doesn't have to. You can force it on people. Like you can from now on, you're gonna say cookie cutter time machine, double
Well,
jeopardy, But if
as
you force it on people, it's not a natural. The
right.
usage, the common natural usage of how things shift,
Hmm.
occurs due to daily interactions and whatnots and popular culture, and it, little by little, works its way so that a new word is injected into the language. And
Hmm.
but if you, so one example, final thing I'll say, one example is a word that always existed but somebody changed it. I never heard the word nuclear or nuclear, always all my life, and I'll say this forever. I will double down on this. There might have been people out there, but when George Bush stood up and the press and everything and this and that, I'm telling you right now, this is what I saw, this is what I witnessed. He said nuclear. And all my life, and I watched the movies, and throughout my,
Hmm.
it was nuclear. And
Hmm.
the story, there's no nuclear.
Yeah.
And then well, no, just to finalize, but once he said that in public, all of a sudden I started hearing reporters all of a sudden start saying nuclear. Yeah, because the nuclear, like they started copycatting him.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And you know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's um I had heard it before, but because it it wasn't really in the zeitgeist, I guess you'd say, simply because some people pronounce things, do you say Iran or Iran? Do you say Vietnam or Vietnam? Do you say Chinook or do you say Chinook? Do you say salmon or salmon? I mean, there's a lot of words that can be pronounced with different regional accents and stresses and things like that. But when they made such a big deal about it, I started noticing more and more people saying it that way as well. But
yeah,
maybe they always said it that way.
no,
I don't
no,
know.
no. I
And I
do.
just didn't pay attention to it.
No, no, I do. I grew up. It's not like
Hmm.
I use the word nuclear every day, but
Yeah. Hmm.
believe you me, that along with a bunch of, I'm not saying that it.
Well,
I'm not saying it's right, wrong, this, that, or the other. I mean, I am sort of saying that I prefer the way I've always heard it, but what I'm saying is that it wasn't used like that, and
hmm
all of a sudden people are saying nuclear, and they're doing it with a straight frickin' face.
hmm
I'm like, no, that's not the reality that I came from.
yeah, that's not
Sorry.
the word. Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing with, I hate
Well,
this one, top of mind. A few years ago, the press secretary for Biden said, because she was being the reporters were pressing her because Biden had mentioned something to the effect of a Congress lady that was now passed away,
Mm-hmm.
or something to that effect. It was a person that was now passed away, and he asked,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, is she in the audience?" or something like that, and like it was something obvious. And then so
Mm-hmm.
in order to correct, the press secretary had to do some sort of and
Yeah.
she said, "Well, the problem is that the person was top of mind for the president."
Uh,
And once she laid that little trifecta of
uh-huh.
top of mind, all of a sudden in the freaking news, you heard people randomly in little parts, and even to the point where I've heard it
Mm-hmm.
in recent times. And you may think, oh, is it the chicken or the egg? No, dude.
Yeah,
In
no,
this
I get
scenario,
it.
yeah, it's sort of
I
like
get it. It's kind of like that whole circle back thing. Well, we'll circle back and we'll find out about what we'll get back to you. I
yes,
never heard that until that one press secretary said that.
yeah, it
And
was
then suddenly it was a saying, you know.
exactly. And so now it's part of the it's something you can grab
Hmm.
that people can reference to something in the past that they've heard somehow.
Like the term deep dive, says Al Kilroy's Odessa Woodworking and
Okay,
Maker Shop.
okay, so that's a good point, or a good um
Example.
variation on the theme.
Hmm.
Deep dive. I'll have to admit, I don't remember when it first, but I do know that it's something prevalent in the 2000s. I don't know at which point that exists, but I do know right now
Hmm.
that it's something. And but in the back in the day,
Hmm.
I don't remember. Maybe somebody used it, but in general, nobody said to me, "Hey, dude, let's go to the library. We're gonna deep dive into this thing."
Hmm. Or
I don't know that
how about at the end of the day? Well, at the end of the day, it means this.
that
Huh?
I have heard all my life.
I I want to say it started getting even more and more popular around the late 1990s because I didn't hear it much. You know,
There's a
the one that
Spanish equivalent to that, by the way.
the
But
one that I heard more often, but that's just because of the bumpkin people that I grew up around was, well, when the rubber meets the road, it's this,
yeah,
you know. But at the end of the day, I want to say that really started getting popular late 90s or something like that.
yeah. Kilroy said, "Oh, and Portal's here."
Hey, how you doing, David?
Kilroy said, "And thing." You do know at the end of the movie they say "thing," which means end,
Yeah.
and so on.
Hmm.
Well, it's sort of derived, at least if you want to trace it to Spanish or even Latin, broadly
Hmm.
speaking. Um, you could say at the end of the day is derived from that. But I here in my little nook of
Hmm.
the country heard that, and maybe it's something that was borrowed from Spanish, used by
It's
English
possible.
speaking Spanish people, and then it just rolled into the. I don't
It's
know that,
possible.
but I know it was common here. So I would say that at the end of the day is something I have
Hmm.
heard.
Yeah.
But nuclear, that's a little variation. We know what the word is, but sayings like at the end of the day, I mean, we've talked about this. They have their roots somewhere,
Yeah.
but when you force something like Latin acts
Hmm.
for
Well,
another purpose, it people are gonna push people are gonna push back on certain things like that because you're disrupting their um just
yeah.
habitual normal
Well, it's
um
changed for the purpose of change, and that's all. It's not any better. It doesn't explain anything any better. It's
yeah.
just one more layer of jargon, basically. Uh, as we develop new tech, we have to come up with names for this new tech, and so you get into situations like, well, who decided to call it email? And what the hell does that mean anyway? And I can remember the news talking about when electronic mail first came along. And now we don't have to wait for something to come from the post office. I can sit down and type this electronic letter and use electronic mail to send it to your box. Well, okay, that's where email came from, but who decided to call it that? Was it just some, massive group think? We all just decided we're going to shorten that down to email. Or was it somebody up there saying, well, it's called electronic mail, but we're going to tell everybody it's called email?
Let me give you an anecdote
Mhm.
to show how long I endured being a barbarian. Okay. Um, so I was out in California. Now,
Mhm.
mind you, a precursor to this, we always had a computer at home.
Yeah.
My dad had the Commodore 64. He'd sit me in front of it as a kid, but it was just noodling around to for
Hmm.
me. I didn't see any practical. I mean, I know that you could use it as a to
Play
write
games or what have you.
or even write stuff like little menus or
Hmm.
bulletins, which my dad did. So I knew that it had that all that, but I never found it practical.
Hmm.
Plus, I had
I
video
was the same.
games. If you want to play video games, why not just use an actual dedicated video game? So like, I
Yeah.
had no need. What am I doing in front of this stupid thing? Um, so I'm out in California, and the lady I was with and I were about to go out,
Hmm.
and she said, "Oh, wait a second. Let me sit down. I got to write an email."
Hmm.
This was in 2000.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm like, okay, but I'm already like at that point. I'm already like, and she sits down and she starts typing like she does all the stuff that we know already.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at that. I'm thinking to myself, why don't you just call the person,
Yeah.
pick up the phone, and
Hmm.
just tell them what you want to say? Like this is the thought that at the time.
Hmm.
Or if you want a delayed reaction,
Hmm.
why don't you send an actual letter? Like if it's important,
Hmm.
send it to them or call them.
Yeah.
If it's important but it can wait,
Hmm.
send them a freaking letter. Like that's my I was in the 20th century, um literally, well, not literally at that point, but like figuratively, while heading into the 21st. And I'm like, that's what I was thinking, and I'm like, what a waste of time. You're just typing this and that to send a that. I was thinking that it was 2000 and I was thinking that.
Yeah. 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 It just, I'm going to be honest with you. Up until just a couple of years ago, I was the same way about texting. But that kind of goes back to the first phone I had, which was a flip phone. Of course, everybody had flip phones back then. It was before the first iPhone came out. So smartphones weren't a thing. And texting was cumbersome because you had those um, 9 buttons, and you had you know you want to type a B, you had to press A and then press it again to get to bring the B up, and wait a second, and then you go over and do the next one, then wait, go over and do that. So texting was a cumbersome thing,
Yeah.
and you got charged to send a text message. You didn't get charged to receive, but you got charged to send a text message. And I just didn't see the advantage because I was like you. I've got the phone in my hand, it's open, speed dial one there, and we'll talk.
Hmm.
So I didn't get into texting really at all. I still, I'm not much for it because I'm still old school. My daughter's this way. She's like, Dad, just text me. Just text me. And I'm like, okay, I could text you, but I've got the phone in my hand. I brought it up. I've got you here in my contacts. I can either hit the phone icon or I can hit the text icon. Screw it. I'm hitting the phone icon. She says, just text me, and then spends 2 hours on the phone with me. And it's not all me talking. So I just find it funny. And you miss out on so much in text. I get it. Text messaging has its place, and I do use it.
So
But I would really rather speak to the person on the phone than
so
exchange a
here's
text message.
here's the thing about that.
Hmm.
Or actually, it made me think about now what you said made me think about this.
Hmm.
Just recently, there's a few things to it, but whatever. Just
Hmm.
recently, Facebook, I don't know if it happened on your end. I don't know if you guys out there it happened to you. when they erased all the messages up until a brand new level of security, blah blah blah, this that and
Yeah.
the other. And so now when I go visit your messenger
Hmm.
that you and I have in a back and forth conversation,
Hmm.
it's only to a recent date that our conversation, but we had a conversation for the past 4 or 5
Yeah.
X amount of years
Hmm.
prior to that that was recorded
Hmm. Yeah.
with well, no, let me get the idea out, with things that you and I exchange and ideas and this and that.
Mhm.
A lot of it was just mundane. Hey dude, yeah, okay, oh well, let's do the show, we have to cancel, or hey dude, how about this problem or this or that or this song.
Mhm.
um but some of it was us over some extra ideas, like really honing in
Mhm.
what a problem might be, and your ideas over an issue or mine. And what ended up happening is that all that history
Mhm.
that's personal between
Yeah.
yourself and I, and the millions of other similar things, is now all erased forever as
Well,
far as we know.
that happened to me about 2 weeks ago, and it was that way for about 3 days, and then suddenly everything was back.
Oh, did it come back?
Yeah, it all came back, and it basically there was a little blurb that said the security for these chat messages are now encrypted, and this, that, and the other, what have you. But it did go away, and then it came back. I was having a conversation with somebody right there in real time. A message would go by, and I would go to another window, and I would come back, and two replies up was gone. And you had that little spinning circle of death. And it did that for about 3 days. Then suddenly it came back, and all of my messages all the way back are there.
Okay.
So,
Well,
um,
an additional thing to that.
mhm,
Well, that's good news. Well, two things.
mhm,
One, the other thing part of that is that even if I wanted to reminisce
mhm,
or find a poignant exchange that you and I had,
mhm.
maybe
Or go back and find a link or something like that. Yeah.
exactly in October of 2018, you
Mhm,
and I had this conversation that we really honed in some points.
mhm.
Try your luck and find that.
Yes. Yes. That's when I open in Messenger because the window is bigger and I can scroll up and I can see things a hell of a lot better. But yeah, there have been times where I've gone to our conversations. So now Eloy sent me a link to something about 8 months ago. And dude, have you ever tried to wade back through a year of
I've tried.
messages?
I've tried
I
in some
mean,
cases.
it's like the water torture, man. It just never stops. You just keep going, but what the hell did we talking about? Look at this. It's a mess.
Listen about that.
Hmm.
That's electronic, as
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But a parallel is that one of the most ubiquitous exchanges of communication
Hmm.
from the ancient world is Mesopotamian clay
Yeah.
cuneiform.
Cuneiform. Yeah.
They're scattered across the frickin' desert in buried areas and caves, and it's like and most of it is like, hey, 2 jars of wine,
Hmm.
send your slave Esmeralda,
Hmm.
hey, when are you coming back? It's been 5 weeks. And
Hmm.
it's like just a bunch of like random, the same difference.
Well, the same thing as we would do today.
Exactly.
You know, it's like the first text message sent was, "Hello, I'm sending you a text message," and the answer was, "Who dis?" You know. So,
Well,
now,
yeah.
now, Dutchman's Woodshack here brings a good point here. Kilroy always hears my voice messages on Messenger because I hate texting. I do you know anybody like that? Rather than sit down and type something into Messenger, they'll record a voice message and send it to you through Messenger.
I've had some people do that.
I have one person I know who does that. Instead of sitting down and typing, "Hey Mark, what do you think of this, that, and the other?" He'll record a voice message and send it to me. I always cheese him off by sending text back. I do it on purpose. It's like, I'm not going to play that game.
The for some reason, for myself,
Mhm.
and apparently for yourself as well. Well, I don't know to what extent, but it seems to be the case that texting
Mhm.
in that fashion is the most effective or most agreeable to me
I think so
form of
too.
form of exchange, more so than a recorded message. It's like,
I think so
hey,
too.
I'm going to the fruit stand, and blah blah this and that, and okay, that's
Mhm.
fine. That's information exchanged, but
Mhm.
the text is official in a sense where it's written down. There's something to be said about, hey.
Mhm.
At 5 o'clock, I'm gonna be at such and such a place, and I'm bringing the banana stand.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something concrete and um
Yeah.
no wiggle
Well,
room about
it,
that.
yeah, it ends any discussion about it. Well, no, you said 4 o'clock. No, go back and look at the text. Oh, you said five. You
Yeah.
know, but then you can get in trouble. You can get in trouble that way because well, I texted you that we changed the date till yesterday. Oh no, I didn't. It's in my drafts. I never sent it. I'm so sorry. But you spent all day thinking you sent that. You know, I use messaging quite a bit. I don't. It's funny. I said I don't use text messaging or texting. Um, but I do use Messenger a lot. And private messages, I think that's different from texting, mainly because I've got a full keyboard right here. I'm not fumbling with fat thumbs looking for the right button on my phone. I've got a full keyboard right here. And if I want to put in 16 symbols, I don't have to change keyboards and look for them. But I use that a lot. But I think that it is very useful because if I get something in my brain at 9 o'clock at night, I can send it to you in a message and you'll answer when it's convenient for you. I'm not expecting an answer right now. And the same thing with an email. If I send you an email, I'm not expecting an answer right now. It's like you'll get to it when it's convenient for you. And I'm perfectly acceptable with that. If I need an answer now, I'll just hit the green button and call you.
Yeah,
You know,
there's a usefulness in that respect. You don't have to, it's not like you're standing by the phone or the payphone at some 7-Eleven
mm-hmm,
waiting for the callback that you left. There's wiggle room, but it's exact in its messaging, or at least as
mm-hmm,
far as what the person can convey. So it's very useful, the system that we've developed, other than it's electronic.
yeah,
And what I mean by that is what you've referenced in the past, which I used to actually, yeah, it was like that. I once told you or mentioned to you that, dude, I don't know why we need libraries and this and that, because frankly, Mark, this digital world we live in is great. This was like, I don't know how many episodes ago, but
yeah. This was few years back. Yeah.
see, to me it's like we did that like
Mm-hmm.
a few weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
Because like it's all bundled up now
Mhm.
in a continuous like
Yeah, a loop.
fabric of space and time. And you said something to the effect of, well, what if an EMP or a this or that, and you started giving out scenarios, and I came around to your thinking for obvious reasons because it's true. The only record, like you had suggested,
Mhm.
more or less something like that, is that if everything goes, there's no record of anything. Well,
Yeah.
not anything, but most things. We
Mhm.
don't have what people used to do, which was record things physically.
Yeah.
And so the same. Look, I'll say the same. Last thing I'll say about it. The same thing with money
Mhm.
or digital currency or whatever you want to call it. The real thing in paper, it may sound attached to Earth in a
Archaic.
sense,
Yeah.
archaic, but it's autonomous. It's you have a level of autonomy. Like with the money,
Mhm.
it can't be. It can be tracked, but nowhere's near the level that digital stuff. So if you have a
Mhm.
$500 and you move around town, by
Mhm.
the time you get back home, Um,
Yeah.
no one's none the wiser whether you spent $2 and where, or $500 and where, and you do have your receipts on your end and this and that. But with digital, they're getting your phone number, your name, your this, the
Well,
that, the blah, the blee, the blue, the blah. So your whole trajectory path, and if you have a phone with you while you're traveling down,
mhm.
they can even tell you the routes and stoplights you took around. So it's like that.
Well, I'll give you an example. Another example. It's a loss of control of your own funds. I'll give you an example. My father passed away. We were down in Carson City, Nevada. Our bank is up here in Medford, Oregon. We were at the funeral home. I was paying for his final expenses. Whipped out my card, gave it to her. She ran the card. It came back declined. I'm like, there's no way. Let me go down to the bank. She said, okay, fine. I went down to the bank. The bank says, oh, yeah, they flagged that because it was a large amount and you're more than 200 miles from your home bank. And I said, unlock it. And she gave me the directions. I had to go do it through the ATM and I unlocked it. I'm like, don't protect me from myself. I don't need that. I don't want that. I will decide when I'm going to spend my money. Now, I didn't happen to have a checkbook on me at the time. She would have accepted a check, but I didn't have the checkbook on me at the time. I got that released, went back down. She ran the card. Everything was okay. My whole point is it's my money to spend when I want to spend it, and I'll not ask your permission. So knock it off. That's another problem with digital money, as it were. I mean, it's convenient, yes, but you know,
It's a problem. It's a problem, a potential problem. It's convenient,
hmm
but um, so like in China, I'll just say, and we did have talked about this in the past, or in certain area. I don't know to what extent. I'd have to revisit that whole thing, but they have a social credit score system.
yeah, yeah, I've heard of that.
Anything that you go and purchase, train rides you take
Hmm
across the city, and other activities, all are scanned through some sort of device, phone, card.
hmm
I'd have to go back and see the details. And people are rated on a score system
Yeah.
depending on violations that you may commit. Like, let's say, because also people vote on your behavior. Like, there's a whole thing to it.
hmm
Um, you may be declined, even if you have the credits. You may be declined to get on that train until you meet
A
the
social
standard.
credit store. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that sort of thing. Whereas with cash,
yeah.
um, a couple of mafiosos in 1937 New York could move about the now I'm giving I'm giving a good excuse for social credit. But the point is that from mafioso to regular guy that doesn't want to be
Yeah.
farted around with, you
Or
can
to
move
the.
around with cash,
Mhm.
whereas this digital stuff is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly my point. If I'd have had my check, but and I didn't carry, it was like $900. I don't carry that much cash on me at one time. You crazy. Um, if I'd have had the checkbook with me, she'd have gladly accepted a check. Everything would have been fine. And there's nothing unusual about a check coming from somewhere, halfway across the country. And basically, when we got back home, I went to the bank and I said, take all that crap off of there or I'm switching banks. It's my money. I'll spend it where and when I want it. Thank you very much. She said, well, we do that as a protection. And I said, I don't need to be protected from myself. I said, you don't know what it's like to be standing in a funeral home hearing that your card has been declined. And you can see her face just turned white. She said, I understand your point. I said, yeah, take all that crap off of there. Because what they wanted me to do was call them up and tell them I'm going on a vacation. And I said, no, that's not happening. I'm not checking in with mom when I want to go, you know, down to Nevada for some reason. It's none of your business.
Um,
And I understand protection, but I also understand intrusion. You know, it is my money, and I'll spend it where and when I want to, and I'll not answer to the bank for it.
there's, I mean, and by the way, just as another aside, everything is to contact someone, a physical person
Mhm.
from an establishment. In many cases, it's practically
It's ding
impossible.
dong near impossible. Yeah.
And the people that you are in front, or that are
Well,
you do come in contact with
uh,
in said company, random
mhm.
company, like there's various examples, do not have, I don't want to say the wherewithal, but they do not have the authority, or
Mhm.
I guess in many cases the problem solving, to solve a
Oh,
client's problem there and then. Things that should be easy
mhm.
become extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I could give various
Well,
examples, but you were going to
I
say something.
spent 40 years in the workforce, and I know everybody has a boss. Everybody has a boss. And if you can't do this, tell me who can. Well, I'd have to send you to the regional office. What's the address? I got time. You know, I'm not going to blame you if you're not authorized to do it. Fine, dandy. Send me to somebody that is authorized to do it. Everybody has a boss, and I don't care who I'm talking to. You know, it's it and it's not that I'm demanding or anything. I'm a live and let live kind of guy. And if they've got rules, I'll play with them rules. But by the same token, I'm not a doormat. So if you're going to protect me from myself, I'm going to take my business somewhere else unless you can remove all that crap. And they did. They removed it. And I haven't worried about it since. That was 2016. 2016. So,
Some of these things are good, though it may be an inconvenience in real ways,
mhm,
but some of the protections are good. Like I expect if some, I mean it's all scenario dependent, but yes,
mhm,
if you bust out a huge payment and it's not in your habitual thing,
mhm,
at the very least they should ask, please call to verify purchase, or something like that. At the, like back in the day, that, so when I used to work at Lecter's Housewares,
mhm.
and it was, instead of digital, it was ching ching,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But the ching ching we had, by the time I'm doing that stuff, was a two-pronged process. You slid the card through the machine,
Mhm,
it sent that off via a modem of
mhm,
sorts. So in fact, it was a computer,
mhm.
which I was using. The register was a computer, but it was one of those basic whatever. It's not like it had any
Yeah.
advanced graphical, but it would send the information that this credit card is requesting the purchase of said items,
Mhm.
or of said amount. And then if it was too much, even back then, they
Yeah.
would send back on the screen. It says, "Please call your branch. Have client call the branch." And then I, as the
Mhm.
representative person, would tell the person, "Look, here's the phone. They want to call just to make sure, blah blah blah."
Mhm.
And many times they'd say, what?" But they'd call and they say, "Oh, we just wanted to verify it's
Yeah.
you." And it was done. And that was back in the '90s,
Yeah.
early to mid '90s. Um, so they could do that now as well. But I guess
Yeah.
the fraud level, who knows? Who knows?
Well, I can understand they got to protect themselves as well because if this was a fraudulent purchase, and I do understand both sides of this because I've been on both sides of it. If it's a fraudulent purchase, all of a sudden there's a $900 charge to my card at Best Buy, and 300 miles away from home. Really, maybe that is a little out of character. Maybe that's a little suspicious. I don't know what they're going to do when we go buy Linda's new car because before we go up there, I'm going to transfer the money and savings over into checking, and then when we get up there, we'll write a check,
Sir,
for
sir,
that
we're
down payment.
Sir, were you this past weekend? Were you in Thailand at a place called Sushi Sally's?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, exactly. But a funeral home? Come on. There are not many people going to funeral homes with fraudulent cards or, things like that. Are there? If that's a problem, that's something we need to look into. But I wasn't aware of it.
no, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. Cancel, cancel, quickly.
Yeah. So I get it. They got to protect themselves too, because if they did approve something fraudulent in Las Vegas, for example, and I wasn't there, now they're on the hook for the money because that was fraud. I didn't do that. Now you got to give me that back. Now they got a bunch of, so I understand they're protecting themselves as well.
Right. Yeah.
So I get it, but it's like, don't save me from myself. Don't protect me from myself. If I need that protection, I'll ask for it. But I mean, I use two-factor authentication for things, and I do, I try to take precautions, but you can't think of everything. But I certainly wouldn't have thought of putting a hold on a card because you tried to pay a funeral home. That's kind of kooky to me. Of course, it wasn't a person that did it. A computer flagged it, and then I had to go reset the card and get everything set up, and then they'd let it go through. And I
Um,
felt about that tall, and I was 4 different colors of red at the same time, standing in front of that lady at the funeral home trying to pay for my dad. You
it
know.
is embarrassing because
Hmm.
well, obviously, um, that's an unpleasant experience too. By the
Hmm.
way, that
Well,
whole thing.
now here's I opened my mouth. Jim Dockrell wants to know what kind of car are you getting for Linda. We're looking at Toyota Corollas, so get that out of the out of there. Al wants to know, did they text you or did they call you? No, they just declined the card, and I had to go I had to go up to the bank. Thankfully, it was about a half mile up the road, and say,
No, that's what I was saying. That
mm-hmm.
back in the day, I don't know why they don't do it now. I guess they might do it in some places,
Mm-hmm.
but or with some cards. But it should be that the message gets returned to the cashier
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Please have the customer call," like a big freaking slapped on message
Yeah,
on the
well,
screen. Please have the customer call to verify the card, and that solves because then the register person relays the message to the
mm-hmm.
customer saying, "Sir, the company wants to," and then if
Well,
he or she has their wherewithal, they would say they just want to verify the amount that you're going to, and then you would place piece two and two together and say,
right.
well, it's just to confirm for their security and mine, and then that's
Mm-hmm.
a respectable interaction.
Well, this was nothing to do with the tellers in the bank. This was nothing to do. This was a computer just froze it because
Oh,
I
but
was more than a certain amount away. I understand your point and I get your point.
well, the
And the
computer,
teller didn't help me release it either. I had to go do it in the ATM.
but the computer should say
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
that customer please call, as opposed to leaving that little doubt as
Hmm.
that, oh, this guy's a Margaritaville flip flopping floaty down the lazy river, who knows,
What do
hobo.
so you're telling me they got cameras too?
Oh, so you walked in with a snorkel and said with a beer in
No,
your
I
hand.
didn't have flippers on, but I was no, I was in decent clothes. But normally, I'm in a t-shirt and shorts if it's decent weather. And yes, I have worn a hole in my flip flops. I now need new flip flops.
The point is, it saves the embarrassing non-suggested suggesting that you don't have the
Right.
fundage,
Hmm.
or that you're suspect of
Yeah.
not keeping your stuff to get, like, all that stuff
Yeah.
that's not appropriate to have in a situation like that.
Yeah.
But I have seen the level of customer service. I mean, look, and we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
honestly, I drive by, and maybe it's a good thing, fast food restaurants. I don't
Hmm.
bother because the last 3-4 times I've gone through,
Hmm.
the service was crap, the food was crap. It was just like, no. So it's like fast food places now no longer exist, even though I can see them down the highway.
Hmm.
And just one final thing, I went to Home Depot, where the same thing happens. But luckily, this last time I went, about last weekend, I went to buy a breaker. Uh, I walked in, and it happened to be this one dude, tall guy. And I said, I'm looking for a breaker, and this is the model. And he says, come this way. It was all behind glass.
Yeah.
Whereas just 4 years ago, you could put your hand in and grab the breaker with your hand. And it was quick. So this guy knew what he was doing, and it was
Uh-huh.
quick. But all the times before, more or less, people have a lost in the
Yeah.
forest look.
Yeah. I I have a love hate with Home Depot. My hate relationship is I don't care what day I go. I don't care what time of day I go. I don't, it doesn't matter when I go. If I'm going into the electrical department, the guy in electrical isn't at work that day and somebody from lumber is covering his corner and he has no idea where anything's at. That happens to me about 75% of the time. If I'm looking for something and I can't find it and I want to see if maybe it's up above in backstock, whoever is working there that day, that's not their department and they're not sure. So it happens all the time. And if I go to lumber, the dude from plumbing is over there and he don't know how to run the saw. So I'm strapping a 16-foot board on the roof of my Jeep, you know. So
One of the things too, I just got to say this now that we're talking about this, and you said that
mm,
this is a little bit convoluted, but not really, but kind of. There's something there. I just a little connection there. It's true that the big box stores are freaking awesome,
mm-hmm,
flat out.
yep.
You got almost everything you need. You go there and you have options galore,
Mm,
and so on. So I'm not arguing that point. We all know it. We all love it to the degrees that we do. I know I do. That includes your Walmart's, greatest place on earth next to Disney World, and you and Best Buys and this and that, whatever. But the sweet spot in society, in my opinion, as a suggestion, let's see what you say, was, and I'm sure it's different in your area, but it won't be too long. The sweet spot in society in our era of life
mm-hmm,
was when there was plenty of small mom and pops,
mm-hmm,
like your from pharmacies to hardware, little hardware
mm-hmm,
outlets, little gas repair stations, and this they're still,
mm-hmm,
they still exist, but they've dropped off. But the sweet spot was when those existed next to, and I know that the folly of the one was the
mm-hmm,
other, and the big, when we had the choice of saying big box store bad, I'm
mm-hmm,
going to the small one for this issue because the small one knows how to get things done in this particular and you could ping pong back and forth. However, last thing I'll say, the one crushed the other one, which is basically what ends up. But that moment in time, which I'll say was across the 90s, 80s, 90s, and early first half of the 2000s,
mm-hmm.
we had a good 30-year run. Maybe
Well,
longer but more or less
I'll,
like that.
I'll, I'll give you an example. They opened up a Lowe's about 3 miles down the road from us. And Lowe's is better than Home Depot, at least here locally, in my opinion. But Home Depot has more stuff. Okay. But Home Depot is also 20 miles down the highway, 3 towns over. So I have to plan to go to Home Depot, and I don't do it very often, maybe 3 times a year. But if Lowe's doesn't have it, a little family hardware store, Hubbard's Hardware, which used to be in the middle of town, has moved out to a bigger location about half a mile down the same highway from Lowe's. And I know if Lowe's doesn't have it, Hubbard's does. And I will bounce back and forth between the two of them. If I need an oddball nut or bolt, I know Lowe's isn't going to have it. But by God, the old cardboard drawers with the lift up top, and you're in bin number 6, and there's that 6 millimeter by 32 millimeter bolt. That's the one I need. Put it in a little paper bag, write down the bin number, and go up to the register, and off you go. The place where you can still go in and buy nails by the pound. The place where you can now go buy wood screws by the pound or deck screws by the pound. They've got the oddball stuff that I know Lowe's isn't going to have. Or Lowe's wants to sell me a box of 25 and I need 3. I'll go to Hubbard's and I'll get the 3 that I need and hope I don't drop one in the driveway. You know, so we have that little bit of it's still there, it's still around. Now, true, sometimes the big box stores do drive mom and pop businesses out of business, but a lot of times they drive traffic. And like right now, downtown, where it used to be everything from clothing stores to jewelry stores and things like that, now it's trendy cafes and it's reading rooms and little boutique bookshops and stuff like that, where people want to go into town and hang out with the society folks. And the mom and pop shops have moved out where the traffic is. You still see a lot of convenience stores within a mile or two of Walmart. Folks can drive that extra mile and get their bottle of soda for a heck of a lot cheaper at Walmart, but they don't want to hassle Walmart. They just want to run in and grab a soda and get out. So a lot of the mom and pop shops have moved out of town and they're by these big hubs. For a while, they were setting up shop around the mall, but even traffic at the mall is way down. I mean, if you see 50 cars in the mall parking lot, there's something going on.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. That's a good. But I wanted to ask you this: if you could build yourself your little that same little strip with all the shops,
Mm-hmm.
with the perfect stores that would fill it,
Mm-hmm.
what would that be?
Oh my God.
Let's say you had a handful of store shops empty,
Mhm.
and it was your ideal walk on
You know what I
down.
want?
Yeah.
I want an old fashioned barbershop. I want a good old fashioned barbershop with pole outside and 3 people that aren't going to ask you what size guard you want for your hair. I want a barber who's going to, put me in the chair, lean me back, do the straight razor shave, cut my hair with the scissors and maybe trim up the back with the electric clippers and give me a good haircut. I don't want to go to a stylist. I don't want to book time at a salon. I don't want my nails done. I want a haircut. Give me a good old fashioned barbershop. Next to that, I want a guy's clothing store where I can go in and they've got blue jeans on one wall and you can pick your size and there's a fitting room over here. Great. And we've got t-shirts over here. We've got polo shirts over here. We've got slacks over here. You want shoes? Here we go. And we got socks and underwear and all this other. Give me a good men's clothing store that's got some variety to it. I don't want a big and tall shop. I'm neither big nor tall. Never have been. Never will be. Um, See, next to that, I want a car parts store that doesn't want to know what size engine you need for valve covers for your tires. You know, you walk in. I need a round headlight. Okay, what your car do you got? No, 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 no. I need a round headlight. There's only 2 sizes. Give me the big one. Well, no, the computer needs to. No, I want a round headlight. What aisle are they on? You know, let me go pick my parts. You
Make it
know,
the make and model, sir.
Yeah, exactly. small block Chevy motor mount. They made small block Chevy engines for 50 stinking years. The motor mounts are identical. Don't ask me what
Um,
size engine. Does it have air conditioning, manual or automatic transmission? It's the same damn thing.
I'm here for blinker fluid. Make and model, sir.
Yeah, really, really.
Like it doesn't matter what you come in for. It doesn't matter once you step through that door.
Hmm.
At the they will. That's the first or one of
Yeah,
the first
yeah,
questions.
yeah, yeah. There you go. I need windshield wipers, automatic or standard transmission. Are they different? You know.
But by the way, well, do you have any other shops that you would want filled that?
um, uh, a sandwich shop. I want a sandwich shop where you've got a variety of meats, cheeses, things like that, and I want a sandwich shop that'll toast the sandwich if I ask for it. There was a place down in, I believe they were a chain. It was called Schlotsky's Deli. And their sandwiches, they had a pizza oven. You know, the pizza oven that's got a conveyor on it? And it's set to, however much time your food spends in there is how long it takes to cook.
I mean,
They
I can
would
picture it, but
they'd take the bread, slice it, lay down the meats, put the cheese on top of that, a little bit of oil, and then run it through the little thing, take it out, and okay, what veggies do you want? And it was a fantastic sandwich shop. And they closed down, and there's nothing like that. Quiznos could have been a great place,
they were great.
but they screwed up several times and got way too expensive and they just died. But a good sandwich shop. Other than that, um, we'll let them sell. The other places can do whatever. I mean,
And a CNC parts shop.
I don't even need that. Don't even need that. That's pretty specialized. You can't carry everything. And I've also got Medford Tool and Supply down the road, so that's already covered.
So
So,
my ideal little walkway. I mean, there might be other store, but I would want a bookstore,
hmm
a record shop.
hmm oh, a record shop, man. Yeah.
I'd want a music store, instrument music store.
I got one of them. Yeah, here in town.
I'd want a little Cuban bakery, all in one bakery slash sandwich shop.
hmm
So you can get the bakery stuff, the little pastries and all this and that.
hmm
Um, I like your idea of the barber shop, old
hmm
fashioned barber shop. So I'm gonna nick that one from you because that's a good thing. Like old school,
Yeah, with the chairs kind of in a horseshoe shape with a big table with like Car and Driver and Road and Track and Field and Stream magazines on it. Yeah.
Because nowadays you'll see we still have a lot of the old Cuban ones, which is basically the traditional what you would see
hmm
in New York with the traditional like the guys. It's the
hmm
same difference, except Cuban. But you're starting to see a lot of these fade, trendy,
hmm
and like everything is like, and I'll tell you one thing as an aside, but within this, when I was living in California, I was living in Beverly Hills. It was the outskirts just prior to exiting Beverly Hills. But nonetheless, you're there. You're in Beverly Hills.
hmm
And I needed a haircut.
hmm
And I'm not from there, so you go to the nearest place, but you're
hmm
thinking, well, how expensive really can it be? And
Oh, dude. Oh, dude. You have no idea.
so it was an expensive one.
hmm
But I said, well, you know what? Live and learn and laugh and
I'm worth it.
no, well, I was out there. It's not like I'm
hmm
gonna go across the train tracks. I'm in Beverly Hills, and I said I'm gonna splurge and see what they do.
hmm
And so I go in, fancy schmancy,
hmm
and I said, look, I want a traditional 50s style, neat the parts here, just more or less what I have going.
hmm
Um,
Just shorter. Yeah.
not me now, but I'm saying it was
Yeah.
more neatly whatever. And then okay, working on it. By the time it was all said and done, it was expensive. I ended up with this Frankie Valley looking freaking thing.
Oh, what a night.
I walked out and I knew it was screwed up. Like, it wasn't bad, but it
Hmm.
looked too forced. Like
Hmm.
Frankie Valley and like it's like,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh. And so whatever, that's just an aside. I found it ridiculous, but all of a sudden now I had that damn haircut and had to wait till it grew out again.
Yeah.
Uh,
I miss the days where I could walk in, sit down, read Field and Stream or whatever they call me, who's next, get up, go in, sit down, and tell the barber, taper the back and sides and layer the top. He knew how you parted your hair, he could see it. He knew maybe the questions would be um, how high up over the ears, and do you want the rounded taper or square taper? That was, but he knew what taper the back and sides and layer the top meant. And that's all I would have to say. Snip, snip, boom, boom. Want to thin out the top a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. 10 minutes, I'm done. I'm out of there. 650, whatever it was. Now, I'm not expecting the price to be 650 anymore. I'm not stupid, but I don't want to go spend $35 sitting in a salon. I just want a haircut. I just want to trim. I just give me a haircut, you know?
you've never had the urge for a really good pedicure, just sitting there. You put your dogs up, and you let them polish and
No, not in the least.
you've never woken up in the middle. No, let me. No,
Not in the
hold on.
least.
Wait, this
I'll
is a
give
public
I'll give you
forum,
I'll get
dude. I
go
was
ahead.
about to hit you with a funny one, but go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go for it. Go for
No,
it.
because I was gonna go from the silly to the ridiculous, but go
To
ahead.
the ridiculous. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll let it be because I was just going with it, but go ahead.
When Linda retired from the Army National Guard, I thought I would try to do something nice for her. She had been wearing what we called the shrub suit for 22 years, the military uniform. And it was by God time for her to dress like a girl again for her normal day to day life. She didn't have to put on, camouflage uniform anymore. So I booked a spa day for her where she got her hair done, she got her nails done, she had a pedicure, she had everything. And at first she was excited, but about 10 minutes in, she said it became an ordeal. She found out she hated people messing with her feet. She did keep up the nails for quite a while because she did like that. She didn't like the haircut she got. And all in all, it was kind of a meh experience. But it was good to have a woman again. You know what I mean? Not dealing with military haircuts and stuff like that. But it was kind of a eh. But at least my heart was in the right place. You know.
I mean, yeah. So I was gonna say, but but that was a good one too. So I was just gonna say that you've never woken up in the night and you tell me honestly, you've never woken up in the middle of the night just in cold sweat saying, tomorrow, it's a full pedicure and deep tissue massage and suntan with the little glass, the little glasses they put on so that everything, and then you take it off and you have the little eyeglasses on. You've never,
Not even once.
you
Not
see,
even not even once.
you see
Never.
that? See, I don't understand it. I mean, well, me neither.
Well, I don't understand it either, but never once. I've never once had that thought. Not one time.
You've never. Wait a second. You've never like just rolled out of your bed, hit your head against the dresser, and sat there and said, "Tomorrow, I'm enlisting in the yoga and cathartic what do you call it, incense class at the local YMCA." You've never,
Not even once.
in my mind, it's just there's so much crazy stuff that people get into out there, But
Oh, I know.
to be honest with you, what you detailed as far as a simple haircut,
Hmm.
no frills,
Yeah.
just get it done. That's it.
Look at me. I am not the height of fashion. I need a haircut, something ferocious. It's just not a super high priority right now. You know, I've got other stuff I got to get done. I do need to go get a haircut. Maybe tomorrow I'll go get a haircut. I don't know. Maybe Friday I'll go get a haircut. I don't know. It may not be until February. I can't tell you. It's just not that high a priority right now. But I'm not a clothes horse. I mean, I have bought more clothes for myself in the last 12 years. I have bought more clothes for myself than I have in the previous 40. I normally don't buy a whole heck of a lot of clothes. You know, t-shirt gets a hole in it, that gets relegated to the that's work clothes now, and I go buy another t-shirt. I might go to Spencer's and get a Stevie Ray Vaughan t-shirt. I might go to Walmart and get a Oregon State University t-shirt. Whatever. It's a one for one kind of thing. About 6 months ago, I bought a package of 6 Fruit of the Loom pocket t-shirts. Then I bought a 6-pack, 6 pairs of socks. And that's the most clothes I bought myself in 5 years.
Let's do a little dating game.
Uh-oh.
Not like the dating game from back in the, but like era.
How old
When
are
I w-
you kind of dating game? Okay.
when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
we had all the tropes
Mm-hmm.
of past decades
Mm-hmm.
because they would appear in movies and cartoons and blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah and this and that. One of them was in school, kids in school
Mm-hmm.
going to school as they were dressed with a pen pocket protector.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, in my era, if one person had a pocket protector, it would have been too much. People did not use them. In your era, was
Mm-hmm.
that anywheres near um commonplace?
I saw a couple of guys with pocket protectors in high school. Um, and they were in my drafting class as a matter of fact. Other than that, no, not really. But you got to remember when I was in high school, disco was becoming the thing. And so it was platforms and polyester and gold chains and afros. And I was the outcast in the blue jeans and t-shirt,
Let me ask you
you
another
know.
one. Let me ask you another. I don't know if you like this uh,
Yeah,
area
sure.
of.
It's
Okay,
yeah.
so let me ask you another one. In my era, growing up,
Hmm.
it was not uncommon to see surely cars from the 70s all over the place
Hmm.
with the brand new models coming up that were more square
Yeah.
from the 80s going into the
Hmm.
80s, that now they're more boxy and stuff, and those were considered that that's a new car.
Hmm.
But these other ones that are the elongated boats and
Hmm.
stuff that had the certain, and I know it came from previous stuff, but the 70s style of that.
Yeah.
And on occasion, as you're driving down the road, you would come across something from the 50s and 60s. Rarely, but
Hmm.
back then you would still see them.
Hmm.
At least the classic ones you would still see. In your era, how common was it to see the classic ones?
Oh, very common. 40s, 50s, 60s. If somebody was driving, case now you got to remember I was class of 79. So, um, if you saw somebody with a 77 through 79 vehicle, a new car, we knew it was their parents because didn't no student have no new car. That's just all there was to it. So it's like, take your mama's car home, boy. Um, I had an I had a 1970 Ford Maverick at the time. So it was only about um, 7, 8, 9 years old by the time I got out of school. And, it did his job. It was a point A to point B car, but it was a used vehicle. And that's, and, but one of my good friends had a 1959 Ford T Bird. I knew another guy who had a 1946 Ford Coupe. Another guy had a 53 Chevy. Um, there were old cars all over the place. A girl who lived down the block from me had a 62 T Bird. We called it the Pink Seagull because a bright pink, lipstick pink thing. It fit her to a T, you know. But yeah, that was common, and pickups and Broncos and things like that. But all of them older used cars from the '60s and early '70s.
We had overlap with much of that, except
Mm-hmm.
that the 60s and stuff like and
Mm-hmm.
earlier,
Mm-hmm.
it started to wane. But the
Yeah.
classic, like for instance, I never saw that I can recall
Mm-hmm.
some sort of like early 1900s stuff down the road. That was just non-existent. Nor cars from the 40s that were nice and big, and
Mm-hmm.
they were curvy, but they were
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
none of that.
Yeah. You would see out cruising on Friday and Saturday nights, you'd see a 32 Ford or a 27 Model T hot rod. But these were usually guys in their 20s, 30s out running around. Like a friend of mine, his father had a 1927 Model T Ford, or that was, yeah, it was a Model T, and it was real tall cab on it, but it was a hot rod, and that was his baby. Black diamond tufted upholstery and the candy apple red and the whole thing, and the engine was 100% chrome. But I looked at that and I thought, man, if it starts raining one night when you're out in that thing, you're going to spend all day underneath it polishing stuff. And I that just never attracted me. So I liked cars that looked good, but I kind of got out of the all chrome thing, because I could just see how much work it was going to be to maintain it. But
Um,
it was the whole spirit of freedom and independence and getting out there. And me and my old Ford Maverick, we gave it a good go. We were all over the Bay Area in that thing.
just on the subject of cars, I have told you before in the past, but just to say, the most wonderful fun time car that I ever had, and I had a few of them. I had a couple of Mustangs.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was a T top,
Mm-hmm.
which was great fun. The other one wasn't. It was a hatchback Mustang, the
Mm-hmm.
smaller type. But the my favorite, I guess, I had early on. I had a bunch of nice cars. I really did that I enjoyed. But
Mm-hmm.
it was in the early 2000s that I had an accident and had to replace the car. And my dad and I went down, um, and there was this car on the corner of either Flagler or 8th Street, classic Miami downtown area, and
Mm-hmm.
on high was this shiny blue Mazda Miata
Mm-hmm.
with a um, uh, what do you call it, convertible,
Convertible top. Yeah.
and it was sitting there. And I said to my dad, "Dad, that looks so good." And I said, "But that's too fancy and stuff." And he said, "Son, you need a car." And by the way, at the time he was driving me around because I had just had the accident, so he really wanted me to get a car quick.
Yeah.
So there was an incentive on
Yeah.
that. He said, "Son, you got to get a car." And then at that moment, I said, "Dad, that looks great." And he saw it too, and he was like, "Wow."
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say "wow," but I knew that he was pleased with when he saw it,
Mm-hmm.
and that I was. And he said, "Let's go check it out, son." And I said, "Dad, but it's going to be expensive, and to boot, it's not necessarily practical. I mean, it looks cool, but," he says, "Son,
Yeah.
enjoy it. That's what money is for.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go look at it."
Yeah.
and we went in and looked at it, and this and it was stick,
Hmm.
and we bought it right there, dude. Or I bought it right there. And after we looked at it and this and that, he checked it,
Hmm.
and so he got in it. I drove his car,
Hmm.
and like protecting it right behind him, and he's
Yeah.
going. And he had that ride all the way back home to Sweetwater from downtown here.
Hmm.
And from that moment on, Mark, in
Hmm.
that little car,
Hmm.
I'm gonna tell you, I had the best on going out on dates in that car,
Hmm.
traveling at night with the T top with the top
Roof
down.
down. Yeah.
If it rained,
Hmm.
because of the size of the car,
Yeah.
I could just I could just pull my hand back
Hmm.
and close it just like that
Yeah.
and lock it instantaneously,
Hmm.
just as a reach.
Hmm.
Um, Driving felt great because
Hmm.
you're down on the ground.
Yeah.
I felt like I was, and in Miami, going to the beach in it, and
Hmm.
just that vehicle in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about today because today there's too much traffic, more than then, but it was wonderful.
Hmm.
Convertibles are just the better than sliced bread,
Yeah. A friend
in
of
my
mine here, before I left and joined the army, a friend of mine here had a 1962 Impala convertible, and that was a blast to run around in. Oh my god, that was a lot of fun.
dude. So awesome,
Yeah.
so awesome, Mark. And by the way, another Mark, he's our friend,
Saunders.
Saunders.
Hmm.
Mark Saunders came down from Pennsylvania
Hmm.
with JP, and he rented, I believe, don't quote me on this, but it was either a Mustang or something similar, Charger. I don't know what it was. It was a hefty car,
Hmm.
but totally convertible,
Hmm.
dude. Not the same feeling, but good enough. In fact, in many ways better because it's a brand new freaking.
Hmm.
We went to the Everglades in that up and down for the day and a half that they were here,
Hmm.
and the same vibe. Convertibles are just the bomb, dude.
Yeah.
Really, they
Yeah.
really are, dude.
They're definitely good weather cars, but they're definitely feel good and road trip cars.
Yeah,
And a lot of times you don't even have to have a destination in mind.
that's the
just
thing.
just get out and go. But is that a thing anymore? That's a good question right there. Linda and I used to hop in the car and go for a drive every once in a while. Just get out, get away from everything and everybody, and just be in the car with one another and talk. Listen to the radio and just have conversations about frivolous things or maybe real serious things, but you never knew exactly what was going to go on, and you never knew where the next turn was going to take you. We just get, am I going north or south? Screw it, go east. Well, I can only go east so far. We're on an island, just that kind of thing. Just go wherever the road took you. And we just don't do that anymore, mainly because time, number one, we both got our things going on. And I'll be honest, I used to tease you. I don't know. I used to tease you about being a hermit, but have you noticed I don't tease you about that anymore? Because I've become a bigger hermit than you ever were. You know, I leave the house. I went grocery shopping today. I leave the house as little as possible. Otherwise, I'm here doing things. I have things I've got to get done around here. The list keeps growing and it's getting harder and harder to tick things off. But I just don't have the time to just hop in the car and go for a ride. And I wish the hell I did.
There's a
So,
lot of things about this
mhm,
town that are just wonderful,
mhm,
but based on various things, but based on the amount of obstacles like traffic
mhm,
to get from A to B to the places that you used to frequent on a
mhm.
whim,
Yeah.
you double or triple think it now or
Hmm.
at all. Like I don't think it. Like I don't. But if I did, like there were things that like so for instance, you could be all the way over here on the western end
Hmm.
of the county, and you know what, you call up a friend and you say, hey, you want to go eat some shrimp and stuff by the bay? Let's go to Coconut Grove, and you'd hop in,
Hmm.
pick them up, and and the lady would sit and dine. You could look at the ocean, and not too far away were like
Hmm.
different attractions that you could just have a nice stroll. And if you didn't want to do that, you could go in another direct. I mean, there was either casinos or the beach proper,
Hmm.
or just a bunch of stuff. And the obstacle, there was traffic nonetheless, but
Yeah.
the obstacles with parking and this that was really very different than what it is now, dude.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
not only that, but in thinking back about it, we both had full time jobs. So she was working over here. I'm working over here. We got done with our day, eat dinner, and then it's like, what do you want to do? I don't want to sit around and watch TV all evening long. Let's go for a drive. Okay, fine. That was a way of decompressing from our day. Work was over. That set aside over here. And now it's time for us. Yeah, we could sit on the couch and watch TV, but we can do that anytime. Let's get out of the house and just go do anything. Go to Dave's and get an ice cream. Oh, okay, let's go do that. And that was a way of decompressing from the workday that we'd
yeah,
had. Well, we're both retired now. We both have hobbies. We both have commitments. She's got her weaving guild. I've got my YouTube channel. I've got certain things that I've got to do. I've got relationships with a couple of companies that I need to, you know, I have commitments that I do with them. And so now I don't have that 8 to 5. It's 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 45 minutes over here, 10 minutes over here. But it's a constant cycle because I never know when something is going to come up. And with her, it's the same thing between the knitting, weaving, spinning, and then bagpiping and the pipe band, both solo and the pipe band. It's it's a full-time thought process itself. She's got certain things that she wants to do, and so she'll work on them. I've got things that I want to do, and I'll work on them. But it's not as cut and dried as when we had jobs, and the job was over. We're on our time now. We can do whatever we want. We don't have that time clock anymore, so we can continue on till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we have, you know if I'm not doing this here tonight, I'll be on another live stream, either out in the chat, or I'm drawing up files, or I'm prepping something for a video, or I'm editing video, or something like that. So 9 o'clock, I say, to heck with it, it's time to quit. And I stop and I get out of this room and I go off and, I say go to bed, but basically I'm in there watching a movie or watching videos or what have you. So not having that time clock to punch out at 5 o'clock and then go get dinner and then spend the evening doing whatever we want, that pressure isn't there, but that priority isn't there either. So yeah, as Linda said, and she's right. I'm the same way. I work more now than I ever did when I had a job. I do too, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
not me.
You know.
It's the opposite for me. But I will say this. But I will say this. Um, yeah, because I opened up a paradigm, and but we won't get into that. So when I want to break away from whatever I'm doing, I go out, right out the door, the front door with Vigo.
Hmm.
He's getting old. I looked at his papers because
Hmm.
he was not doing well a week ago,
Yeah.
where walking and such was a problem, and so you know I like kid with gloves. I treated him, and he's back to his regular old self, which is basically his old self, but
Hmm.
better than what. But there was a 5 day period where things were looking like I was, and so I opened up the papers just to see, because you always doubt yourself,
Hmm.
when it comes to the well-being of your loved ones, including your animals, or at least I have always, um, where you think to yourself, could I do better or have done better in case of, um, you start to question these things. I mean, you realize that at the end of the day, there's, life is a progression, and
Hmm.
you can only do so much. If you could do,
Right.
but you think these things, and so I was thinking these things. I was like, man, because if it were up to me, I would want, things
Hmm.
to be,
Yeah, you want it to be this way forever. Yeah.
so I looked at the papers, and in fact, I got him back in December of 2010. Or actually, he
Okay.
was born December of 2010, and I got him in 2011,
Okay.
making him 15 years old.
Hmm.
And the window is anywhere from 12 to 15
Yeah.
of life, although some far exceed that and go further.
Hmm.
And so I've just basically been watching the aging process. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But the problem is that when you're together all the time, you're looking at your little doggy, and you're like, you're not counting. Sometimes you put away certain things, is what I'm
Yeah.
getting at.
Yeah.
Like, you're not focused on that. Hey, and so when things break down, you're like, man, is it me? Something that, but no, it's the progress of life. But in any event, I nursed him,
Hmm.
and I understand this. But we went out the door,
Hmm.
and we have this neighborhood,
Hmm.
and there's plenty of stimuli.
Uh-huh.
He could give a crap about a bunch of the things that I give a crap about while we're walking.
Yeah.
So I see people, and I see the buildings, and he's sniffing the ground. So
Yeah.
his love of enjoyment is like, man, that's a pungent. This little corner here between the grass,
Yeah.
somebody did something terrible. I'm gonna have to sniff on that for quite a while.
Yeah.
Well, and so one of the things is that I've walked him as much as I can,
Hmm.
really for the past few years, but I have done that in general, but more so in the past few years. But just the other night, or actually last night, and he goes slow,
Hmm.
so it's one of those things. But just last night, within a span of walking around the block, due to the changes of this area, I saw a car accident, debris all over the floor,
Hmm.
cars running over the debris, people on the phones arguing who did what, the cops arriving, lights. I keep walking further. There's kids bunched up walking up and down the thing. Some people in roller skates, other people in little moped type. I keep going, circling the building, the block, and I hear screaming. I'm telling you, in the same walk, Mark,
Hmm.
I hear screaming, and I'm walking. Vigo decides to start sniffing in that corner, so I look into this garage of this huge building, and there's a tow truck there with a guy being towed, and the other guy arguing, screaming obscenities.
Hmm.
Um, you son of a this, because he caught the tow truck company hauling his stuff, and
Hmm.
then another car come, and so by the end of my little rotation, long and short, I had more exposure to activity than I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened, because in Sweetwater, all
Hmm.
my life, none of these. I mean, you would see an incident at a time
Hmm.
in the span of weeks or months.
Yeah. Yeah. You might see a car wreck and be, oh,
That's it,
wow. And then never see one for another month or 3 or 4.
right? And then that's
Yeah.
it. It was done. But
Hmm.
now it's like there's stuff happening, like, and I didn't even tell you half the stuff that I saw on one walk.
Yeah.
It's freaking madness. But anyways, the point is that I walked him. I got my little experience of all
Hmm.
that, but and he got his by
Hmm.
sniffing.
Yeah.
Sheer smells of who knows what.
Priorities, dude. That people handle the people problems. I've got dandelions to eat, and I've got corners to sniff.
Yeah, and I mean, so it's very healthy that doing that, the
Hmm.
walk, at least it has been for me, because you're exploring outside. Because I'm
Sure.
usually a lot focused in looking,
Hmm.
up this thing, historical that, or
Hmm.
whatever. So, and if I had, if there was not as much traffic, sure, you head to the beach. It's great,
Hmm.
but now if you head to the beach, it's gonna be bumper to bumper
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, and that's another part of it is um you now have to get further and further out of town to find the Miami that you grew up with, simply because the Miami you grew up with has overgrown to the point to where maybe a few thousand people were trying to head to the beach. Now it's a few 100,000 trying to head to the beach.
It's always there.
Yeah. And so, uh, it's kind of similar here in that you could hop in the car, and unless you get caught by a train, it would take me 10 minutes to get all the way from the west side of town to the east side of town, or vice versa. There
Yeah.
were 5 or 6 different routes that would get you there. So wherever you started from, you pick the most direct route and go. And now it's going to take a half hour. And that's simply because there are so many more people trying to do the same thing,
Oh yeah.
or going from point A to point B, wherever it may be. And that's just all there is to it. So to have my quiet little rogue valley that I grew up in, I had to move several miles out of town and live in a bedroom community of about 7,600 to 8,000 people, depending upon which census you listen to. So it, it it's not that we've changed, it's that the whole entire area has changed. It's grown up. Now, we still only have like 211,000 people in the whole county, and it's a big county. We're pretty spread out. But when you get to downtown, it's pretty well populated.
Do you think that if I were over there, let's say visiting, that I
Hmm.
would say, "Man, this place is overrun with people," or do you think I'd say, "Hey, this is a breath"?
You'd be like, man, I love small towns. You know,
You think?
yeah. Compared to Miami, yes, yes. We've talked about this before in the background, not on the podcast or what have you. But there's 2 million people in Miami. There's only 4 million people in this entire state. So, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's you'd be like, what the hell do you people do for entertainment around here? And it's like, well, we can go downtown, watch haircuts. Well, no, we can't because we don't have a barber shop.
Shotgun, let's go.
Yeah, just go out to the river, skip rocks, or go out to the lake and watch the boats, or whatever. Go up in the hills, go out at night and count satellites, because you can't count all the stars. Hell, Linda and I still go out on the front deck every once in a while satellite spotting, or we'll get on the NASA website and find out where the when the International Space Station is going to be coming overhead, and check it out. So,
I just said good night to Al because
yep,
he's heading out
Al's
to bed.
taking off. Okay, yep. I'll enjoy my haircut as soon as I get one. We For those of you who are new, like Jeff, the Dutchman's workshop, Wood Shack. Um, we don't script anything. This is more or less free flow of conscious. We just talk about life, the universe, and everything. So tonight we've talked about the Spanish language. We've talked about technology, where names came from, cars that we saw in high school, and now we're on getting out. Here you can drive any direction and be away from people in 10 minutes. Absolutely, you can. Absolutely. I can drive 5 miles down the road and point out machine gun positions from when this area was a training ground of World War II. Big concrete bunkers. I can point them out to you on both sides of the highway. It's just a different type of environment. Just all kinds of weird, wild stuff out here.
Yeah,
Get
this
out
place is
and
growing.
walk sections of the Applegate Trail. We can't walk the Oregon Trail because that ended at the Columbia River up north.
If you think of, I mean, this is an obvious one, but like right here in Sweetwater, as an example,
Mm-hmm.
Sweetwater's been around since about a few decades after the turn of the century.
Mm-hmm.
It was incorporated in the 40s.
Yeah.
Or actually, it was made a city, yeah, into a city in the 40s, but it
Mm-hmm.
existed a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
And this area was just basically out in the middle of nowhere in the Everglades.
Mm-hmm.
There were people that lived here at that time that had their families, their loved ones. Um, Many of them hailed from Pennsylvania, um, and purchased here as a summer retreat or a future retirement thing. It was economic enough because you're far off. Some people were adventurous, like, because this really was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Miami was Miami, but this is way out.
You were out in the sticks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all those people obviously no longer around. We're talking about early part of the 19th century or the
Mm-hmm.
20th century. Um, they lived here and had children here, and there were very few people here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that whole history is unknown to people today.
Yeah.
It's unknown to people broadly speaking, because there would be people that would know, um, but many of them moved away
Yeah.
to other parts of the country, be it Tampa or who knows, South Carolina or whatever. They just moved away as time went on. Some people stayed and went, but there was a progression of change in
Mm-hmm.
the population, and certain landmarks remain, like the bridge,
Yeah.
like the gas station, like certain things that have been here for almost ever.
Yeah.
And so there's people like myself. I'm sure there's others, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That you can bump into, because I was a kid and I was told by the old timers,
Yeah.
so I was handed the past to me,
Yeah.
but not perfectly. It was just a son. By the way, you know, the small people used to live over here,
Mm-hmm.
but their buildings burnt down. When
Mm-hmm.
we purchased over here, the houses were still up, so on and so forth. Or this gas station or that, like little things that
Yeah.
you don't go delving in, but you're given
Mm-hmm.
a history
Yeah.
in little bites. By the time you come around to 2025, where we're at now,
Mm-hmm.
generationally speaking, we've built, just like when you see the Rome, the
Mm-hmm.
first road is like ancient, then slightly ancient,
Mm-hmm.
then more modern, and it keeps going, and it's like
Yeah.
all the societies built,
Yeah.
or even like in England, you'll see that. Um, it's sort of like we're like that. We're at this space, but all these people here now, is what I'm getting at, is that the context
Mm-hmm.
of what this is to them
Yeah.
has no um past context.
No, it doesn't. And in fact, if you were to take some of your old photographs of the old bridge from when you were a kid, take some of your old pictures, they wouldn't believe that the that was the bridge into Sweetwater.
Right.
That was how you got there. They wouldn't understand that. They would, are you kidding me? Yeah, two cars maybe could pass at the same time.
They wouldn't even know, or they wouldn't even, if they had the curiosity, they could find it out, but
Mm-hmm.
chances are, so like the people here are transitional for the most part. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that with the amount of young people here now,
Mm-hmm.
some of them will meet and extend their meeting relationship
Yeah.
to the point where they will probably, in some cases, marry
Hmm.
and settle down nearby. In many cases, no, but or some people will leave, remember the times they had here,
Yeah.
and return for one reason or the other.
Hmm.
Just all sorts of variations with people. But the context of 20 years ago, 30 years
Yeah.
ago, 40 years ago,
Yeah.
it's for the books.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm the same way around here. I remember when the hospital I had my gallbladder removed at. I remember when that hospital was built, 1966. I was 5 years old, and I still think of it as the newer hospital.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. The
it
Dolphin Mall, the Dolphin Mall is
hmm
our new mall.
hmm
And that's been around for 20 some odd years now,
yeah,
or at least 20 some odd years, give or take. I consider that the new mall. I still when I walk in, it's brand new in my
yeah,
mind,
yeah.
but it's not. It's not brand new.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, it's 50 something years old. 1966. I mean,
I mean, it's like um a lot of the buildings here.
mhm,
You think, well, these are not turn of the, and they're not. Many of the buildings here are not turn of the century buildings,
yeah.
but they're buildings built in the 60s and 70s. And
We've
you might think, well, that's brand spanking new, but at this stage of the game, you're looking at buildings that, I mean, you could slap a historical label on them just about.
Well, yours was built in the 1930s, right?
Mine was built in 48, 49.
48 or 49. Okay. Well, this valley was settled in 1850s. The first settlers came here. And they settled in this valley because there were no Indian nations here in this valley. They were in other valleys around it, but mainly to the south and southeast. But they didn't settle in this valley because about half of this valley is desert. Well, more desert. Everything's relative. More desert than anything else. And the west side of the valley that got most of the rain, that's where all the ranchers and agriculture got set up. But out here where I'm at, that's why this was a army camp, is because nobody lived out here. And so the government could buy up all the land around here, and there weren't a bunch of animals to get to move. There was no agriculture, no nothing. And where we live right now was on the army base. And after the war, they sold it off. They didn't need it anymore. The main part of the army base is now a VA rehabilitation center. And my dad was born there when it was an army hospital. You know, literally 3/4 of a mile away from me is the building my dad was born in. So I tell people I'm so local, I'm related to myself. But there are still buildings here from the 1800s. That hardware store I was telling you about, Hubbard's, the building it was in is still standing in downtown, and I've got a picture of it from 1917. And it was Hubbard Brothers Hardware. So, you know, there's been people roaming around here, but it's always been rural, it's always been agriculture, and it's always been ranchers. Lots of cattle ranches. Lots of cattle ranches out here. That has been going away as generations move on. Their kids don't want to be cattle ranchers, or they don't want to run an orchard, or they don't want to grow crops. They want to do something else. And then next thing you know, the family land gets sold off and houses get built. And, that's what happens with growth. I
I
mean,
mean,
there's,
it's not, there's no, like, things that are constant, or nothing is constant, is what I want to say, or
yeah,
forever.
right.
As far as we can see, generationally, things adapt or
Hmm.
change. Um, which, so, we really are of our time.
Yes.
I mean, we truly embody, like, literally,
A
uh,
snapshot in time. Yeah.
a snapshot in time. Um, and it's an amazing thing. To be honest with you, I, I you know I will say that I've always been a nostalgic person
Hmm.
and found value in things like of the past,
Hmm.
but I opened up a a, a real big door when I started with the family tree.
The genealogy, yeah.
It led me to um, look at adjacent things,
Hmm.
and then it prompted me to eventually to focus on my little area, because indeed I had stored a whole growing up era history
Hmm.
of here, and so there's history here that will go the wayside.
Hmm.
It's so, like, the remember. I think that the history thing is important, but not everybody and even cares. It's the now, and I
And
understand the now being important because it's now, but I really dig the reflection of the past.
it depends on what history you're talking about. Um, some things are worth preserving. There are things that I'm sure you and I would agree on 100% that need to be preserved. They need to be protected. Maybe they need to be renovated. Maybe they need to be cleaned up. But there are things that are worth preserving. And
Yeah.
then there are other things that are worth preserving to us as individuals. You know, I've got a little guitar behind me here that may not be worth a dime to anybody but us. But Linda got that for her 12th birthday. So it has value to us and it's staying. What happens after we're gone, I have no idea. People may or may not find any value in it, but it's valuable to us. Now, whether that needs preservation or not is going to depend on your priority list and your point of view. Some people might say, yeah, it's a museum piece. Other people might say, you know, you might get $10 for it at a music store. But I think it comes down to what the priority is and whether something should be preserved or not. That spinning wheel behind me, it's from the 1800s. It may or may not ever be a functioning spinning wheel again. But to me, just the fact that it's from the 1800s means I want to conserve it and preserve it as much as I can, everything within my power, even though I'm never going to use it, just because I hate the thought of me being the one to take that down to the dump and throw it away. I can't be that person,
Yeah.
you know. It didn't cost us anything. It needs a little bit of work, but it'll never be put into daily use again. But I think it does have historic value,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
So it all depends. There are a few buildings downtown that I wish they would bulldoze because they are just falling apart and they're, fire traps. They're an accident that has found a place to happen. It's just waiting for a convenient time. But there are other buildings downtown that I think would be prime candidates for complete renovation and overhaul and saving, you know. So I
we,
guess that we all have our biases, and I guess it all depends on what your priority is.
we do see
Hmm.
an example of what we're talking about
Hmm.
with things like that antique roadshow,
Hmm.
where people around the world,
Hmm.
but like in this conversation, let's say in this country,
Hmm.
where they go to those shows,
Hmm.
hauling with them many times, it is something that they found at some sort of thrift store,
Hmm.
but many times it's things that they've preserved from generations past. It
Hmm.
could be a locket or some sort of tapestry,
Right.
just a whole bunch of things. And so, to me, this is a value judgment thing per person, but I don't think I'm the only one. Obviously, I'm making the example with these shows. These
Hmm.
people, are conserving these fragments that they bring to the show, and a story unfolds about that,
Right.
spinning wheel or
Hmm.
locket or whatever.
Right.
um not only the personal story of it, but the manufacturing of it, and a whole series of things
Right.
unfold from it. So a lot of people do hold on or find value in preserving I mean, there's a financial aspect to it too,
Sure.
but just broadly speaking, people do so there is that kind of people out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that again comes down to your priorities and what you believe is worth preserving because it's important to you. You know, um, this was my grandma's quilt that she made. That has value to you, where somebody who is an expert on quilts might think, okay, it's a decent quality, but it's not a stellar example. That's worth $50. Well, fine. That's great. But my grandma made it. So it's priceless to me.
There's one clip that I
Hmm.
ran into. It just I remembered it now. So a lady brings a little collar
Hmm.
made out of silver or something or other
Hmm.
with a name on it, and she brings it, and so the guy's looking at it, and it's just a clip
Hmm.
and stuff, and the guy says, it's like, so what do you think this is? And she said, oh, this I believe this is a slave collar, and that's his name there, and that's the family name, and this and that. And we've had it, it was found somewhere, this that, and it's just a wonder, we've kept it for so long, and we really want to
Hmm.
attach, a story to it, of who,
Hmm.
and the guy says, well, not quite exactly, that's a dog collar. And the clip ends like that, and but so
Yeah.
in her mind, like the assumptions in her mind that was
See
so.
what family folklore does? Yeah. Maybe the dog's name was Slave. I mean, you never know. But it, yeah, you see that kind of stuff all the time. But then again, and you know what? I'll be honest with you. When I used to watch Antique Roadshow religiously, the ones it was a toss up to me. I loved the ones who were told, well, this is a fake and it's worth $35.
Oh yeah,
Those entertain me just as much as you've got a federal chair and this one single chair is worth $150,000. But there is one clip, and if you go onto the Antiques Roadshow website, they've got it up there. It's one of their most popular clips. A woman brought in part of her dad's jade collection. He was a missionary in China, and he would go several places and had several people that would come to him with jade, and he would buy it. And she had like 5 pieces there. And I mean, real delicate cups and a delicate little bowl and saucer for it, and all hand carved out of jade. And this one big piece, and he went down the list and he started saying what dynasty this is from and about when it was carved and this, that, and the other. And you can tell by this marking and this, that, and the other. And this one's worth 100 and some odd thousand. And she kind of looks at him odd, and he says, now this one here, she goes, oh yeah, that's my favorite. And he picks it up and he shows her the markings and what this means and that and the other. And that's about it too. By the time it gets all done, out of these 5 pieces, he says, you've got about $1.1 million sitting right here in front of you. And she's just shaking. She's just sitting there, and she just look up at him and she goes, damn. Just like that. That
yeah,
tone of voice, that loud, not
yeah,
jumping and hooting and hollers. She just, damn.
yeah, because it just you can't process that because
Yeah.
it's not something that fits in the head of it's. Let me throw this last one in,
Yeah. Then we need to go ahead and land the plane, but go ahead.
but it's to do with I guess this sort of thing in a roundabout way.
Hmm.
Um, I ran into a channel that I got to watching where it's a man and his wife, young couple, and they collect they're all about comic books.
Okay.
They live somewhere in Florida,
Hmm.
and they go to all the conventions around the United States,
Hmm.
and they buy stuff that's very rare
Hmm.
and new stuff too, and all that.
Hmm.
She collects, he collects. They're into it,
Hmm.
and there's a thriving industry with all these comic books.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll see a comic book that I owned
Hmm.
that I no longer own, and it's interesting to see because I used to collect them, but I no longer do.
Isn't that a pisser when you see something you used to own and they say, "Oh yeah, these are worth $33,000 now because only so many were made," and you're like, "Ah."
I've never seen a $33,000, but you know, it could be 100, 200
Hmm.
bucks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, so, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that it's a very enjoyable
Hmm.
show channel
Hmm.
because they're sincerely aficionados
Hmm.
of that world,
Hmm.
and they're young, but they
Hmm.
sound like people from back, even better, from back in the day when I used to collect because they're like really into it.
So they're
Um,
not. So they are knowledgeable and they are passionate about it.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
they
That I like to see that too. I like to see that, especially in young people.
well, so yeah, it's very interesting in that respect. But even better
Hmm.
or even cooler is that they set their house up
Hmm.
as a mini convention, private convention.
Hmm.
They open up their rooms and they stack the walls with comic books, and they bring people that are independent sellers,
Hmm.
and they put walls up as well with all their comic books.
Hmm.
So they have a mini convention in their house, and they send out,
Hmm.
notifications, and people come by the dozens and dozens and dozens.
Hmm.
They park their cars out in their front huge yard. They go in and they record all the transactions and conversations,
Hmm.
and it's all to do about, man, Green Lantern, this and that.
Hmm.
Back in 1967, this comic book was this much and this and that, and they really go through the whole thing.
Hmm.
And the people involved in this are young people plus old people.
Yeah.
So you see all sorts of things. It's just a
Yeah.
wonderful.
I
It's
like
just
that kind of thing. I like that kind of thing a lot, and the subject is less important to me than the drive and the desire behind it. I've kind of half-heartedly joked about this being generation restoration or generation renovation. Take it easy, SDM. And but I only half joke because I do enjoy seeing younger people get so much pleasure and joy out of preserving or restoring something long before their time and just enjoying it. That really I like that kind of thing. You know, whether it's some guy cleaning up dad's old car and out there polishing it up and everything and trying to get it as spiffy looking as when dad had it in high school, or if it's mucking out an old barn and repairing it and getting it to where it could be used again. The subject matter is less important to me than the drive and the desire
yeah,
to preserve it and make it right, because it's real easy to throw it away. It's real easy to bulldoze it. But once it's gone, it's gone. And that's a part of history.
yeah,
And to see people appreciate it for what it is or for what it used to be and want to bring it back to its former glory, whether it be an old movie theater or, whatever, uh, a living room set. I just like that. I like that sense of we need to save this.
yeah.
I really do.
One last thing on top of that too.
Hmm.
Um, if you'll humor me, because just directly with that,
Hmm.
as far as that's concerned, that's why I like or lean towards looking at even things as random as people that are dedicated
Hmm.
to visiting, which there's channels like that,
Hmm.
old malls,
Yeah.
and recounting the stories of those malls
Hmm.
across the United States. Um,
Yeah.
and they'll go with their cameras and they'll do all the information.
Yeah.
That type of people like defunct um,
Defunct
Disneyland,
land.
defunct land, where they'll tell you the stories of the behind the scenes of each attraction and
Hmm.
what happened with what, things like that, to ancestry stuff, family history, to American history. It just all these things like what you're expressing. It's those type of peoples that for some reason they get totally wrapped up in whatever they're getting wrapped up in their niche,
Hmm.
that are kind of preserving, at least in whatever, be it video now or whatever,
Hmm.
these things that I too like. And so conserving stories as well as opposed to just a physical, which is just as important, artifact, but it's conserving the
The
past. That,
history.
yeah,
Yes.
I kind of dig it. I kind of dig it.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. With you 100%.
Yeah. Well,
We should go ahead and land it.
all right.
End on a happy note.
I'm pressing all the buttons in the cockpit that I don't know what they do, but I'm sure they'll land. Oh, look.
Hmm. They say push this button. We're pushing it, by Godfrey.
All right, guys. So we go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here on YouTube, Trampled Underfoot podcast on YouTube, and we have also over on Facebook a page that's called Trampled Underfoot podcast, and sometimes we attach videos and links referring to the things we talk about here. So be sure to visit that as well. And we also have a website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. You can check that out. It has audio files and such, so check it out. And we're sponsored by
Harneal Media. The man, the myth, the legend. Steve is in the house, moderating, posting links, commenting away. In fact, a little earlier, he said that he has to drive 10 minutes to get to where there are people. He's so far out of town. But that's all right because from where he's at, he's the master. If you're thinking about a website, if you're even toying with the idea of a website, you owe it to yourself to give Steve a yell. Head over to harnealmedia.com. There's a link in the description of this live stream and every video on this channel. And it's that way for a reason. Do yourself a favor, get over to harnealmedia.com. That's HARNEAL media.com. Sponsor trampledunderfootpodcast.com.
All right, and as always, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We touched on a whole slew of different little
Oh boy.
subjects within each. Yeah, it was a bunch of stuff that I think was cool. We
Mm-hmm.
it was a unique
Mm-hmm.
variation. But then again, we do explore all sorts of crazy stuff. But until next time, which is next Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time, enjoy yourselves. Do the things that you love. Maybe take that trot over to the
Mm-hmm.
local, I don't know, ice
Tasty
cream shop
freeze. Yep.
or whatnot. Yeah.
Take the dog for a walk.
Which I'm gonna comply. I will do that one. It's a slow walk, but nonetheless. So
Maybe
enjoy
it's an
yourselves.
amble.
Peace. What's that?
Maybe it's an amble rather than a walk.
Yeah, it's a slow paced,
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable thing. So yeah. But be safe. Have fun. We'll catch you next time. Peace out.
Please.